hopefully you've seen. This is Lead Small, so I am really pleased to have you guys. If you did sign up for something else, this would be the time. I won't be offended if you need to stretch your legs and find another workshop, but I am super happy to have you. Just a little bit about myself. Let me see if I can fire this off. My name is Sarah Covarrubias, and I am the Christian Education and Missions Director for the state of Texas for the Salvation Army. That's a really, really long title, along with my name, which is super long, so that's never helpful. But just a little bit about that, we in my department, the Christian Education Department, oversee discipleship programs, so that could be anything from Sunday school to character building, Bible studies, primarily for 0 to 35, but we also incorporate a lot of leaders and adults as well into what we do. So if you ever have any questions or are just looking for something that falls under youth ministry, or adult ministry, or even teaching and leading, please feel free to reach out and contact myself or anybody else in our department, and we would love to help you out. I'm going to put this up at the end as well, just in case you need to take a picture and you have any questions or want some follow-up. That is not the most interesting thing about me. The most interesting thing about me are these three people. These are my kids. This is, on your left, there's Noah, he's 10. Olivia, and she just turned 4. And the dude there in the middle is 2. These are my kids. Their numbers, there are some numbers here. We'll talk about that in a little while, and I'll come back to it. But Noah is at 442, Olivia is at 712, and Jude is at 787. So that's enough about me. Hopefully everybody got a little packet. They'll look like this, some of them. Some of them, I am so sorry, I did run out. So they look like this. But if you would like a color copy, please just let me know afterwards. I can email it to you or mail it to you at your call. These are yours to keep. Feel free to doodle, put your name on them, write on them. Primarily, I would love for you to take notes in them and follow along. They're not like step-by-step questions. There are some questions in here that I would love for you to get together with either other people here at your call, with your core officers or your leaders, and talk about some of this when you go back. But we will be following along a little bit in here, and it will prompt you along, okay? So right now, what I would like you to do is to maybe with your neighbor, I know it's a bit of a tight space, maybe just to spend a few minutes thinking about or talking about somewhere along your journey, somebody came and impacted you and opened a door for you. And you'll see in there is a little question about that. But what I would like you to do is maybe just to turn to your neighbor, introduce each other if you haven't met each other before, and perhaps describe to them somebody who influenced you on your journey. Why are you in this room today? Like, why are you here? Just a couple of minutes. It doesn't have to be anything deep. And just spend a couple minutes getting to know your neighbor a little bit. make the life of somebody else.
Second set of officers who came in.
And that's why we're all here, right? And we're all here because that person maybe you're here because that person did something for you. Maybe you're here because somebody didn't do something for you. Maybe you're here because of something you wish somebody had done for you. But we're here because it matters, right? And that's what it is. And when something matters, it's worth asking ourselves a few questions about that something. So that's what we're going to do today. We're just going to cut on into some questions here. And the first thing I want to take a look at is something called strategy. Just like if you are a coach, if you're a football coach or a basketball coach or whatever, you're not going to send your team out onto a field to play the game unless you have a strategy, unless you have something planned. I'm going to take a look at this video.
Here's our chance. Ready, set, go.
Oh, man.
Everybody else Toy Story fan? Yeah.
Right from the middle.
Let's think about those orange traffic cones for a minute, right? The power of a cone. Think about the construction zones maybe that you've driven through recently. We have a lot in Dallas, if you've had to drive through Dallas traffic. There are some out about on camp. And imagine if there was like one cone, which sometimes there is, but there's one cone for like 5-10 miles of construction. Think about the parking lots that you may have been in, and the cones have kind of been knocked or blown apart. Right, and like the chaos and confusion that can sometimes cause when you're somewhere where the cones are supposed to be, and it can cause frustration and ultimately it can cause crashes. Now imagine your weekly programs kind of like that, right? If you have your weekly programs, your Sunday school, your small groups, your character, and they're kind of just like thrown together and no thought is put into them. So how you arrange these things is pretty important, and it's either going to be random because you haven't thought about it, or it's going to be specific and it's going to guide somebody somewhere, and it's going to cause a lot less chaos and confusion. And so a strategy is kind of like a set of cones. It's a plan of action that's going to synchronize with other people, so you're going to have to get together. And if you are a small group leader or a leader of a Bible study or character building, and you're not quite sure what this might look like for you in your location, ask your core officer, ask your young people leader, your YPSM if you have one, or your core sergeant major, ask them so you can get on board. Because it's not about not being it's not about like whether you're flexible or not. That's not really what we're saying. But when you're strategic, it does imply that your activities, your time, and your resources are all aligned around a clear central plan, which is pretty important. And the question should be, when you're thinking about this, is where do you want your people to be? I think you have a line that says, where do you want your people to be? Is what you're doing currently, is it leading somebody somewhere, or is it just kind of out there? You can't do discipleship with people, but is it leading somebody somewhere, or is it not out there? The second step we're going to look at in this category is your church, because I hope you believe your church matters. It matters for a lot of reasons. Sometimes it's because it's a place that you gather and you go on a weekend and you do things together, you're a community, you're a collective. Some of you may have met your significant other there. The church predated Match.com by about 2,000 years, so there we go. And there's a lot of other good reasons. But here's a thought. You are surrounded by people in your community that do not think your church matters at all. And we know this because this study is about a few years old, and now it's closer to 75%. But we know this because nearly 75% of them don't go to church. It's nothing against you. It's nothing against your church. They're not anti your church. They're just truly oblivious to what is going on. They just don't attend a church service. And being a leader in your church is something that you need to think about. The why of your church really matters. And I don't know if you've heard this or not, but our territorial leaders right now are really focusing on the why too, this past kind of year or so they have, which I am really excited that jump on board with this. But the why of your church matters, and it's something to think about. It might go along the lines of, your church matters. It matters because it's a place where people can come to get help, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And your why, the overarching why of the Salvation Army, which our top leadership are coming out, but your specific why of your city might alter a little bit and vary a little bit. It matters because it's a place as well. And what I'm not saying is like the church is the people. Of course, please don't hear what I'm not saying. The body of Christ is the people, the church are the people. But a place is important. Like, places can be really important to people. And it matters, right? Churches have met in all kinds of different places, in homes, in tents, in schools. I know in Waco, there's one that meets under a bridge, outdoors in parks. And it's important. And here's the point to why the place is important. It's important to be able to see it as a place because people, and particularly those of you who work with kids don't think in abstract thought. They're not at the place where you can say to them, but we're the body of Christ and, the church is the people. They don't think about that. So particularly kids. And we as human beings need a place to belong, like to connect to other people. If you think about it, like Dorothy, what does Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz say? There's no place like home, right? A place, whether we verbalize it a lot or not, a place really matters. Think about, we're a camp. So think about when you walk onto camp, for those of you who have been here before, maybe for years, or for different events of your life, what does the place of camp mean to you? Now, the background of that might be it's because the people who invested you while you're here, but the fact of the matter is the place, you belong to somewhere, you belong here. So the place matters, so it's something to think about. And then, the third one is you, right? So I am absolutely convinced that if every kid, if every student, every person had this place to belong, or a place to belong, and somebody, this is the important part of having a place, somebody to believe in them, it's going to radically affect their faith and their future. Now, thinking about it, I can't do that for everybody. I might not even be able to do that for very many, but I can do it for a few people. So talking about camp, one experience is that I have the privilege of doing summer camp and leading summer camp in the summertime. We have 400 kids that walk onto our campgrounds on average during a week. I have 100 staff members, 112 really, but 100 staff members on average, teenagers and young adults who come and work for us. I can't do ministry to every one. I can't minister and speak into the lives of every one of those. I can't even do it for all 100 of our staff members. But I do have a core team of leadership, and my job in the summertime is to do for those few so they can do for their few who can then do for their kids, right? Do you see where the picture is? So, what you do for a few, there we go. What we do for a few is always going to have more potential than what you do for many. And that's really where we're talking about today. So lead small is the concept of small group leaders. Just to get into the room, who in the room would be what you maybe classify as like a traditional like Sunday school teacher? We're kind of transitioning to call it Sunday school like small group leaders. That's kind of the language for the curriculum we're going. But a Sunday school teacher who teaches like a Bible class, maybe a midweek Bible class. Who would do something that's more along the lines of like a character building or a explore? Okay, perfect. Who is kids? Who does like 0 to 18? What if that's your catchment area? Perfect. And who would call their primary audience like adults? Oh, look at that. We're pretty much 50-50. So I will try and like speak into each of those areas and try and help get us covered here. But really, what the role of a small group leader is that one person who decides to invest in the lives of a few people over time. So really when we're talking small group leaders and leading small, that's where we're going. So there's 5 common threads that we're going to cover today as we move along, 5 key things that we'll be covering here, and then we'll take some questions at the end. The first thing I want to talk to you about, I just talked about small group leader. What is a small group? So this is a picture of what a small group is. You like it? So the orange star represents you. So you as the leader. So if we're looking at the picture of you as a leader, the circle will represent a group. It could be a group of kids or adults or whatever your context is. And the small dot represents the individual inside your group. So the small group. And the first thing I want to talk about is to be present. So I love nothing but for us to do our best to excel in our programs, to excel in our communication, to excel in our presentations, to really, really put our best foot forward to the people who are with us. And it's so, so important. But the reality of the situation is we're not competing with Disney. We can't compete with Disney. We can't compete with Broadway. And that's not what we're here to do. And none of the glitz and glamour will ever substitute a constant person or adult, if you're speaking about kids, who is physically present in the life of somebody. It isn't. So your physical presence, I'm talking about you being actually there and showing up, is never going to constitute. Now, it doesn't mean we don't do our best for the other stuff, but it's never going to constitute being physically present. I want to introduce you to, this is a guy, his name is Jeffrey Canada, and I just recently learned about him. He grew up in Harlem. He is currently an educational reformer in New York City and the CEO of Harlem Children's Zone. As I said, he grew up in Harlem, and he grew up his whole life believing that Superman was real, until he hit that point of, where reality kind of set in for him, and he was kind of distraught. And just the community that he grew up, the kind of background and all that kind of stuff, Superman was kind of his figure, and so he actually managed to he had somebody who influenced him. He left Harlem, went on to a really solid higher education, and decided that his best foot forward was to come back into the city and to pour into other kids so they had an opportunity to kind of advance things that they wouldn't see for themselves. So he wanted to be that person, and he started small, just like a corner on the corner of Harlem. And he's like, I'm going to take it one corner at a time, one city block at a time. And now he is the CEO of Harlem Children's Zone. Somebody had a chance to interview Jeffrey Canada about churches, right? Because churches work a lot with kids. And he said there are so many kids that don't believe in God because there are so many kids who do not have a consistent adult in their lives that is God-like, that is Christ-like. So that's the first one. They don't have anybody to show the picture of it. He said church is so important. The person who was interviewed, he said, you are so important, the church, connecting them to something that is bigger than themselves, a bigger community of faith, right? And then he said, the church is so important. Be present in the life of students and kids so that they can understand what it means to have somebody forgive them. When you display forgiveness, when you can show forgiveness, that's one of the foundational elements of our faith, right? If we're going to give somebody faith, what's the whole premise? We're forgiven of our sins. And if they have nobody that's showing them forgiveness, they're never going to understand that one fundamental aspect of our faith. So there are 3 application elements to being present. So we're just going to go through 3 application elements real quickly. Anybody guess? Here's a game for you. Maybe you'll look up. Does anyone hazard a quick guess at how many marbles are in this jar?
65.
42. Good guess. Y'all are pretty quick. If you were close to in the 50s, you're correct. There's 52 marbles in this jar. Yeah, 52 marbles, which represent a calendar, right? So we got 52 weeks of the year. There you go, sir. I'm going to leave that right here. So there are 52 weeks a year. There are. So we're going to talk about being present. The first thing application I want to talk about is to show up predictably. 52 weeks a year. So if you're thinking in the Salvation Army, you want to count in Christmas, a little bit of summer, because people go on vacation or they go to summer camp, or they have other stuff that goes in the summer. So in all reality, what will we be talking about? Like maybe 40 weeks a year? So we have people for 40 weeks a year. Maybe, sometimes, right? If they come to your small group or your activity once a week, that's like 40 times a year, in a whole year that we have. So showing up predictably, it matters. Remember when I showed you these numbers right here? Okay, so if you are in children's ministry, there are 936 weeks between when they're born, roughly, to when they graduate and they leave. 936 weeks. So these numbers, Noah is 10, and he's at 442. Olivia is 4, and she's at 712, and Jude is 2, and he's at 787. So between 2 and 10, that's how much I've already lost traction with Noah, already before he leaves our camp, our house, or the other small group he is. So, I show these numbers just to help explain that, it's important to think about these things, right? And what that might mean. So being in the life of somebody predictably for a season, showing up predictably, is really important. And I hope you see that by speaking in weeks, in terms of weeks, you'll see how much it really does matter what you do in that one particular week. It matters what you do this week. It matters what you do next week. And the older, if you're talking in kids ministries, the older they get, the more you need to show up predictably, the more time, because that time, the clock that ticks. I mean, I look at that as a parent, I'm like, oh my goodness, my 10-year-old, like, where did that number go? Yeah, it does. And so, it's really, it's challenging when you can take a look at it a little bit like that. The next thing I want to speak about is to show up mentally. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but let me give you a picture of my Sunday morning. If I'm talking Sunday morning, I wake up leisurely to the birds singing, the coffee's dripping in the pot, I make a nice cup of coffee, or maybe have a devotion and some quiet time with the Lord, eat breakfast, get my uniform on, my pantyhose go on, run free, stroll up to church, or make it early enough to meet and greet all the people that I felt like I needed to that Sunday, and I'm there singing with joy in my heart. No? Nobody else? No. Me either. I mean, you saw I have 3 kids. And 2 of them are under the age of 5. So one guy's getting self-dressed. No, our house is crazy town on Sunday morning. I was running out of the car, and someone decides they don't like the shoes or don't want to wear shoes, and I'm like, probably know my luck. I get pantyhose runs all the way up, and I don't have a spare pair. I'm running out of the church, just trying to make it to the band, and yeah, it's crazy town. So it's really important if you're leading somebody as well planned as we can be. If you're saying I'm probably going to leave looking at my material till Friday night or Saturday, or I didn't have time this week and I'm just going to run in the door, or I'm going to wake up early on Sunday morning to prepare myself for my small group or my class, or whatever the case, whatever your situation may be. I would just encourage you to figure out maybe how you can turn yourself off or push it into your week where you can really take some time to take a look and just prepare yourself mentally for what you're about to walk into, because as we said, what you do from week to week matters. It really matters in the life of somebody else. Show up randomly. This could be through the use of like social media and other tools where you show up because you want to tell somebody that you believe that they're important, right? This goes the extra mile, just the one extra step. I think I have just a fair amount even here. Maybe some of you can share some ideas. I know I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but does anybody have some ideas or maybe things that you've done for your group of people that have worked where you show up randomly? Some ideas that maybe some of us could use. One of mine might be, and you do have to keep in mind, if you haven't taken it yet, please take safe from harm if you're going to claim a group. One of them might be to, something's going to happen in somebody's life. Maybe you show up for a graduation. Even if you teach an adult class, maybe someone's just, making it through college. I mean, I know I'm on that nine-year lifetime with my master's degree. But when I do finally walk across that stage, maybe someone's going to show up for me at my graduation. Maybe if you know something's happening for them, maybe you just want to send them a card. Just say, hey, thought about you, sick, or congratulations, or even happy birthday, right? Because I know we do things collectively, but happy birthday, you matter. I mailed you a card. Kids don't get mail at all, hardly ever now. If it only speaks their language, maybe you could, send them a post on Instagram or Facebook or, something like that. Just to show up randomly, maybe somewhere that you would think, yes, ma'am.
Maybe I had two boys that got to go to camp, but the sister didn't get to go to camp unexpectedly, so we all took turns taking her, like one group took her to the movies, and then I showed up one day and took her to the park and to McDonald's, that she didn't get to do.
And can you imagine that? But how old is she? How old is she?
Just turned 10 last month.
Right. So can you imagine that for a 10-year-old or a 9-year-old? To be like, how cool is that my people showed up for me, like, and the memories and the connections that made. Yeah. Yes, sir.
You take an adult as a person out of your class, and you find out that person had to go to the hospital that week.
Yes.
Well, go with your uniform on and visit them in the hospital.
Yeah.
That really brightens them up.
Yeah.
It really brightens them up.
Yeah, that's right. Right. Just, show up to them. And, that's awesome. Well, thank you for those ideas. Those are great. We'll go through quicker. Okay, so you have a small group. You might want to draw a little picture. We're going to go to the next step. So the second step would be to create a safe place. Somewhere on your page, if it helps, go ahead and maybe draw like a small group. You may even want to draw like enough little dots in there that is. And then what I would like you to do, if it helps you, is to draw a thicker circle, a little bit of a thicker circle around your small group. But while you're doing that little doodle of your small group, if that's what you like to do, I'm just going to tell you a little bit of thing. So a story about under the rose. So in the ancient days, officials would carve roses into the ceilings of like political conference areas and like buildings. And it was like a code of like and they would start saying under the rose, and it meant that what was spoken into the room, it was a safe zone, right? This is a safe place. You can talk about it here. This is under the rose, what kind of happens in the room stays in the room, because they needed a safe space to talk about critical issues that wasn't going to go outside. And after a few decades, some of the priests and ministers caught onto this, so on the side of their confessional boxes, they would carve out roses. And so when people went for confessional, they knew this is a safe place, right? We're under the rose. And I want to talk about creating a safe space. There are 3 points to this. Here, my friends, I know some of you have might have been before. This is my small group right here. Some of you may have small groups that look just like this. You may have like Crazy Town Bob over here. I'm going to premise this conversation with there's a rose. Safe space. This is a safe space. You may have a princess over here who loves to like sing and dance and do all this kind of stuff. And I'm not saying if you are an adult leader, this probably looks more like your small group than those of us who do kids. So this is my small group, right? So there are all kinds of people who are going to be in your small group. All kinds of people. And I just want to let you know that and give you permission, it is not your job to fix these people. Okay? Some of them come with all kinds of stuff, and it's not your job to fix them. Which is what it is your job to do, though, is to create a safe space for them to be who they were created to be. Right? So it's your job to create a safe space where, as much as the wild questions, especially if you deal with like second, third graders, kindergartners, coming out of there, it's a safe place. It's your job to create a safe space to talk about these things, to have these conversations, right? Because that's how you grow your faith, is to be able to ask the hard questions, to ask the questions that you might feel uncomfortable somewhere else. So your job is to create a place of acceptance and a place of love for them to be who they want to be. Not your job to necessarily think that we have to fix them. Respect the process. I just talked about like how it's not our job to fix them and how we could probably feel a little bit more at ease with that. I hope it'll help for you, at least, like, that we can't really change everybody in our group, but it's not necessarily our job to do that, right? We have somebody who's going to help do that. That's the work of the Holy Spirit, right there. So if right now, if you are here and you feel stressed or you feel tension, I really hope it helps you to hear that the Holy Spirit is going to come alongside and do His job, but what your job to do is to create a safe space so that He can do that. Okay? So I truly hope someone in here needs to hear that. It's the work of the Holy Spirit. The Bible doesn't say change your neighbor, it says love your neighbor, right? So if you love them, bring them in, create that safe space. So lead the group, respect the process, trust that the Lord is going to come in, the Holy Spirit is going to move at some point, all right? Trust the process. And guard the heart. Now, I know we talked about creating a safe space, and I do hope that you build those relationships in that place where they can ask the questions. But we do have to be very aware and guard the heart, right? Because it might contradict a little bit the first point in your head, it did for me, but there are times when you might have to break confidence in that circle. So I always put it down to 3 things. If it includes being hurt, if it includes hurting others, or if it includes hurting themselves, you need to reach out to your core officer, or if you have a YSM or somebody, you need to reach out and you need to ask them to help you. Hopefully, also, if they brought that up in conversation, hurting themselves, hurting others, all that kind of stuff, if you've got the relationship there, and hopefully you create enough to just walk up to them and say, I love you, I respect you, I honor you for saying that to me and for speaking that to me, and I want you to know how much I love you and respect you, but because of that, we are going to help you. And I can't do that by myself. I have to invite somebody else into the process, okay? So just kind of respect a little bit. So lead the group, respect the process, and guard the heart. Is everybody sticking with me? It's a tough one after lunch. The next thing I want to talk about, we call it so I call it partnering parents, but if you lead an adult group, this can be partnering with the family, so you might include the spouse or the extended family, or if you have young adults, a lot of the time they create a network of other people, right, and that's like their family. This is my crew, you know, hashtag my crew. But I want us to acknowledge the power of the family. Like earlier on, I showed you here we are, the jar of beans right here. So if we have, how many hours did we say we had? 52. If we take away for Christmas and stuff, how many on average? We have about 40, all right? So we have 40. The average family have over 3,000. Okay? So do you see, like, why it would be important, the power of the family, to include somebody else from the family? Now, I know our situations can be a little bit different, especially some of the ministries that we do, some of the kids, your context, I certainly understand that. But we cannot ignore the influence, whether it's good or bad. We cannot ignore that there is influence there in the family. I mean, see, whether there's influence, okay, we cannot ignore that it's going to be there. But it's our job as a small group leader or a leader of people to help leverage that. And I want to encourage you, if you lead a group of people, you may already do some of this, but please don't think that you have to leave it up to your core officer. In fact, I want to empower you, because if you think about it, you're the person who's with these people for 40 hours. You're the person who's with these people for, you know, however much time. You're the person who's hopefully creating the safe space and having these conversations, building connection. You know their lives. I want to encourage you and empower you to help your core officers, that you can be the bridge to their family and to their relatives and to their people. And I just want to encourage you to take that and empower you to do that. You know, if you need some help or guidance, sure, please reach out and let your core officer know what you're doing, but to go ahead and do that. And one of the greatest ways to reach the family, I don't think, is by adding another program. Don't get me wrong, I don't think there's anything wrong with inviting them to your program or having a VBS party, you know, whatever's going on. I just don't know that that's the most successful way to do it. If you know that, if you're working with kids, if you know that kids, like, send them a note home and tell them how awesome you think Bob is. Like, just be like, he's in my class, and he sits in my class with me every day, and you know, he's such a great helper, he loves handing stuff out, and I'm so encouraged. You guys are doing a great job at home. Thank you for letting him be with us, right? Just reach out and make the connection. If you are with an adult, you know, some of the stuff that we talked about earlier about being present would probably have a lot more potential and impact, right? Like you said, show up at the hospital. Like, when you're at the hospital, introduce yourself, because I'm sure somebody else who cares about them is there. Like, connect with them, connect with these people. Just feel empowered to do that. I think if you're, God bless you if you're a small group leader, and you certainly have the influence to do that and be that connector. So there are a couple of things in partnering the parents we can think about is to cue the parent. Like, that's kind of one of the things I told, especially if you, like I said, this is more in the context of children's ministries, but to cue the parent would be one of those cards, like the opportunity to send a card home. Orange, who we use for our Sunday school curriculum, you might know it as 252 or First Look or XP3, comes with a lot of, the Salvation Army had a lot of codes, and then we took on Orange, and we got a whole heap of other codes too. But if you're not sure which one, come touch base with me, or I can connect with your core officer, and you can connect with your core officer, we'll find out. But all that to say is that they present us with material in the children's ministry with Orange curriculum. There's like God's time cards and some other things that can be printed off. You can write a note on there and send it on home. Right, that's an easy in. That's an easy to cue the parent. I'm not against, in fact, I would be a proponent of having like an open house, right, at the beginning of the year, inviting everybody in, come see where people have small group classes, come see where we have Sunday school. If you're a parent and you don't usually connect, come see where your kids hang out every week. I'm a proponent, But I tend to think that not too many people, especially if they don't already connect with the church, would show up to something like that. So I would say, what about if you can connect with a parent and get with your core officer, maybe come up with a plan. We talked about those codes, right? Strategic plans of like just reaching out and saying, hey, hope you're having a good week. I would really love to talk to you about, your son or daughter, and then put something positive, because if I'm a parent, I get a note home, and it doesn't say that. I'm always thinking, oh my gosh, what have they done wrong? But would you like to come have coffee with me? Like, let's sit down and talk about how awesome they are and what we're doing and how we can connect with each other. How I can support you in parenting your kid, right? And I know our context sometimes can be really difficult with our parents, they really can. But just to think about how we can cue the parent. Number 2 would be to honor the parent. So I think we could probably be realists in the room. Not all of us are the same, but in the Salvation Army, we have a lot of kids who show up to our Sunday school or our small groups and to our programs who we don't have that deeper relationship with the parents. Sometimes we can even let our minds tend to wander like we're babysitting for the parent and kind of, and it can get into our minds and our hearts, and we can start tailing off onto like the pathway of like a little bit of like we're better than them, or we kind of care a bit more about their kids because we're putting into them this lifelong faith, or we can kind of, if we're not careful, trail down that thought. But I want to encourage you, if you can, honor the parent. Here would be an example. So Johnny is in your class. I've got a lot of Bobs and Johnnies, right? Johnny is in your class, and his grades are pretty not that great. And he comes to you on Sunday about how what terrible parents he has. They got all over him for his really bad grades, and it stinks and all that kind of stuff. And maybe you could throw it back in his court. Maybe you could say to him, kind of gear the conversation like, well, your grades are pretty important, right? I mean, if you're wanting to succeed in school, if you already know what Johnny wants, you want to be an engineer, you want to be whatever, you're going to have to go to college. You need good grades to go to college. So maybe your parents got onto you because they care about you. Maybe they love you enough to get on. Just whatever you're doing, just trying. I want to try to say, just trying to honor the parent, be that advocate. And reinforce the family. This would mean something like, if you are going to have something for Christmas, don't have it on Christmas Eve. We make things that, and some of our people do, we want to encourage them, give them Christmas parties, and, we want to do all of that. But, I have kids, and I show up at my call sometimes, and I'm thinking, oh man, it's a holiday, I would love to be with my family. But just kind of when you're thinking about your calendar, I'm just throwing it out there. Reinforce this, whatever you do, reinforce the family. It will really, really help them. Everybody still all here? We still got you rainy day Saturday afternoon. I know the struggle is real. The next step is make it personal. Make it about you. You are the small group leader. What I want to say to you is one of the reasons you are in their life is to be on the front row to show them your story of restoration and redemption. Your story. Make it personal. It is about you. We are not perfect. We're not, and that's okay. I'm not saying any dirty laundry or anything like that, but people need to know that it's okay to be real and live in the real world and have a real faith walk and to be realistic with them. And that's how people connect and grow in their faith. Show them it's your story of restoration. That's why that's the journey that God has placed you in, and the place where God has put for you. And there are a couple of things that we need to think about when we do that. It means that you need to guard your personal and spiritual growth. This can sometimes become tough, but I want to encourage you, you need to find a community. You need to live in community. And what I mean by that is you need one too. You peers, right? Your sixth grade small group are not your community. You can love on them, you want to feed into them, you do want to be realistic, but you cannot dump your baggage onto your small group like that, like especially if you're with kids. You need somebody who you can connect to. That might be really challenging where you were at. They might have adult small group at the same time with their kids. But I want to encourage you to reach out to somebody else, even if it's just one other person, and be like, hey, let's study the word together. Even if it's only via like Instagram or Facebook, or so, and we're gonna meet like every other week in a coffee shop, or if you don't have that or can't think about that, please come find me this weekend. Come find me. We'll help get you plugged in. But I really want you to encourage you to also connect to somebody else. Number 2, set priorities. Everybody has priorities that are being modeled for them, including your small group. And again, these could be good and these could be bad. And that means that just taking a look at it, like we talked about living your life, but you need to make it personal, and that includes everything that comes along with that. It is not wrong for you to say, if you are married, to say to your small group of teenage girls, hey, I would love to come and watch that movie with you on Friday night, but it is my anniversary and I'm hanging out with my husband. It is not wrong for them to hear that. It's not wrong for you to say, well, we're going to switch it up a little bit. They need things like that modeled for them. They need to see that, like, marriage and relationships matter. They need to see that kids matter. I'm not saying, they also need to see that they matter, right? We talked about that before, about being there and being present. But they also need to say real life. They need people who model that for them, who set priorities. To be real, they need you. We just talked about that. They need your story. There are people in this room who are much cooler than I am, but we're probably not all that cool to everybody. Is that too real? I don't know. I don't know. The best people who, if you think about the best influences in your life, they're probably not the coolest people who have been in your life either, though. I want to speak, you're aware there's a camera in the corner, so under the rose, safety net. I want to speak about Major Shaw. Okay, I go to a call locally here, and there's a retired officer there, Major Shaw, and she is the best. She is, I'm not going to say an age, I'm going to say she is well seasoned in life. That she looks after our junior soldier class, and my son, my 10-year-old Noah, goes into her class on a Sunday morning, and he thinks, and she is, I have very much respect for her, but he thinks she is the bee's knees. He thinks she is the best thing that's out there, right? And he comes out there and he has questions. He's like, hey, Mom, guess what we talked about today? And all this kind of stuff. And if he's having a down day and I'm dragging her out of the house in his uniform, he's happy to show up for Major Shaw. Like, not for me, because I told him to put his uniform and drag him out of the house to go to church, but he's happy to show up for her. And, she's this well-seasoned older lady. You don't think a 10-year-old thinks she's, like, cool as all things. But he does. But she is real with him. She's real with her group of kids. And so it's okay. You don't have to be super cool. To feel the pressure. Some of you are way cool. But you don't have to be super cool. Just be real with them. The next one would be to move them on out. This is where it changes a little bit. From day one, your job would be to think about moving people out. This will go quicker if you are in kids ministries than if you're an adult. If you're in adult ministry, you might want to think about, it might be moving out, you may be moving onwards with your group. So as your group grow in Christ, they grow in their walk with the Lord. But you may have to do that. You may have enough people coming into your church where they need to step into a foundational faith class and then kind of move on up. With kids, from day one, we talked about that 936 number, or whatever it was. From the day they come, they're packing their bags, right, until the day they leave. And so it's super important about what you're packing in that bag with them. You have to really think about it, because they're moving on out. Whether we like it or not, they're going somewhere. So we need to think about, are we moving them on to somebody else? Especially kids and teenagers, need at least one, if not two other adults in their life other than you, that you have a thought process that they're connected to in the body of Christ, that they can rely on, that they can feel trusted with. You may want to start making notes on who these people might be. It might be part of, we talked about strategic planning, your orange cones. As you think about those cones and that plan for your own small group, the smaller picture, think about that. Connecting to somebody else. If you were not there, would the bottom fall out of their world as far as their faith walk is concerned? And then they learn the capability of connecting, especially kids and kids. They would then learn how to connect with other adults too, right? And if you're their small group and they trust you and they head off to college, they need to figure out how to connect with another adult or a mentor. And that's just such a good thing that you can hand off to their faith. So they need to connect with other adults. Move them to be the church. Mission is not what happens inside your circle, inside your small group. That's teaching, that's discipleship. Part of being a disciple is to move out, right? To move out and speak into other people's lives. And to do that, and to discover their voice in a safety net, they need to take part in something that's bigger than. Who has community care ministries in their core? Then we know what community care ministries is. You do. Who else would have? It's or opportunities for their kids to participate in what the church, your core does. Like visitations to nursing
Yes,
homes.
we go to nursing homes, we feed the sheep.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, giving them opportunities. It's
And
within
they enjoy that a lot.
Yes.
That makes,
Kids
it's
are.
actually an outreach for more, because when we go out there to the homeless, we get more of paying attention from the homeless when it's our teenagers out there with us, feeding the sheep, than when it's us adults out there feeding the sheep.
Right. And so when they do it in the context of their small group or within the collection of the church, it gives you a chance to model to them, right? Show them how to do this. They have that safety net. Also, they can start reaching out and doing it for themselves. And they can actually feel, I don't know about you, but when our kids go out, they get so excited about what they've done because they felt that. They felt what it means to be the hands and feet of Jesus. You're not just telling them what it is about, you're showing them what it's about.
When they can feel what it's like to help someone else, they get the much larger picture of it.
Right, and it's just so important, a step in faith, and that's for everybody. If you have a new church member who's an adult, once you start discipling them, to try and get them plugged into what's going on so that they can feel that for themselves and what it's like to go out and be the hands and feet of Jesus within the safety net. Because then when they go off somewhere else, if they're in their job, if they're at school, if they're at college, they then have the confidence to do it of themselves, to speak Jesus to somebody else, and speak about Christ to somebody else outside. And move them to what's next. We talked a little bit about, I won't spend much time on this one, but we talked a little bit about transitions. And the fact is, in life, there's a lot of transitions that happen. Obviously, for the kids, there's more so. They move quickly from being like elementary school kids to some pre-teens to some teenagers. One of the big transitions we talked about is like moving from high school to college, right? Do you have a plan in place for your kids, even if you only have a few of them? Do you have a plan in place for your adults? Like, once they've reached a point of spiritual growth, like I said, are we plugging them in to outreach of what we're doing in the community? You've given them the opportunity to the church. When they're a kid, are they transitioning, or do they just show up one day and they're in somebody else's class because they've aged out? Do you have a plan in place? Have they been able to make those connections? Are you moving them on to somebody else? Have you given them an opportunity to make connections with the next person? Or like high schoolers. Like you see it often, high schoolers will walk across the stage on graduation Sunday, and then the next Sunday they're in the adult Bible class, and they're like, oh what? What just happened? Like, and then we we wonder why we lose the teenagers in our churches. Like, have we connected them to the adults in that class? If that's the expectation, if the expectation is they don't have a high school, like a college class, that they're gonna be adults, have we connected them there? Have we connected the dots? Have we made a plan to move them on more smoothly? Or do we just throw them into the class? It's something to really think about. So that's what it would be. So, we've talked about the 5 points of small group leadership. I know there was a lot of talking on my part. So I thank you for being here. I thank you for what you do. If you have, I'll take some questions here in a second. But if you have any questions, or you want to talk some more maybe about the strategy element that we talked about, the orange cones, if you're really just wondering about that, if you want to talk a little bit more about cueing the parent, involving the parent, if there's any parts of this, I'm here all weekend. Here, let me throw up my details again. And it's not cooperating. I'll throw up my details here in a minute when it's not going to confuse life too much. But please feel free, give me a call, send me an email, reach out to me, find me. There's some information over here on the back wall about orange and things. If you just have some questions about material and all those kinds of things, please feel free to ask me. But thank you again.